Hi, I'm Tamara LaPlante with Perspective Property Inspections. I'm a certified professional inspector and a certified master inspector with InterNACHI. Today we are going to be performing an inspection on the exterior of the house along with the interior of the house about drainage. Drainage is one of the most important things of a home, and today we're going to start on the exterior of the home and take a look at areas that you can address and maintain to help with drainage around the property. First thing we're going to take a look at is the exterior of the home and taking a look at what we can see from our perspective. In this case, we've got lower areas around the home that are on the ground from the grading. This is a low area which can actually accumulate a lot of moisture. It can also have freezing over and keep the moisture within one spot, which can actually have issues on your foundation. The other thing that we like to take a look at is the ejection line from your sump pump. Ejection lines that are too close to the home can cause a lot of damage, which is all it's doing is recirculating the water back into the pump. This distance from away from the house seems to be appropriate. Anything shorter, which you do have a low spot, can actually accumulate the water around here and start having the pump work harder and longer. The other thing we look at is any gutters need to have proper slope on them and directing the water to a downspout. The extensions from here, this actually should be extended further away from the foundation. This will also make sure the water is saturated in the ground right next to the foundation, which you can have foundation issues along with moisture intrusion. Other areas that we should be looking at are the front porch. You can have erosion caused from drainage that's not properly sloped away. Over here, you can notice that there's concrete and there's erosion that's happened underneath the concrete. This can also be caused from rabbits, rodents that get underneath there, and they can cause a lot of damage. Other areas that you should be maintaining is your fences. Poor drainage can actually affect your fence, especially where the posts are intact with the ground. The slope and the grade, if the slope is grading towards the fence and not creating a swale that is away from the home, it can actually stand in the area of where the fence is and causing wood rot. Proper drainage is always important when it comes to your fencing also. Another place that can cause issues from drainage would be your driveway. Driveway can actually have cracking caused by that, along with heaving, settlement, causing tripping hazards for people that are approaching or leaving the house. Having all of these seams sealed with some sort of caulking. The caulking should be a higher grade just due to the fact that you can actually have more issues with cheaper caulking because it doesn't do its job. Settlement from the driveway to the inside of the garage. You'll see settlement coming from here and separating from the garage floor. Trees can also affect the drainage around the house. It can add debris to the house, around the house, and then also overhanging tree limbs can damage the roof. And the gutters can accumulate the debris from the tree, and then also you're going to have problems with the drainage within the gutters. Tree overlaying of the roof line can damage, and then it can also lay all of the debris down on the ground here, affecting the way that the drainage for the water can get away from the house. Downspout extensions along with the perimeter drains. The perimeter drains go into the ground and they will eject somewhere. Sometimes they call it daylighting. These areas need to make sure that the daylighting or the area that it ejects to doesn't have rocks around it, debris around it, to make sure you have proper flow away from the house. The types of soil grading can also be that the soil is flat around the home. It can grade positively away from the home, and you can also have flatness. This is muddy through here. This is telling me that you have an improper slope around the home. It can also cause pressure up against the foundation, hydrostatic pressure from moisture, water pushing in on the foundation. It can cause problems with your condenser unit for your AC unit, getting that off level, causing damage to that. but all this area through here is actually grading towards the house. If you have mountain properties or homes that are higher than your property that are draining close to your home, these areas should require some sort of swale. The swale used goes around the home and creates like a divot within the home, diverting the water away from the home. If you have retaining walls or garden boxes up against your foundation wall, that can also give avenue for water, moisture to be pushed in on your foundation wall or water intrusion. These boxes should not be up against the foundation. The other thing, if it's a new build, a lot of times the new build construction, the builders will not warranty these retaining walls. So drainage can also affect the siding. Siding that doesn't have at least a clearance of 6 to 8 inches from the ground can cause issues with your band board along with your sill plates, mud plates. Moisture can get behind the wall, causing mold, also movement within the house, water damage, moisture intrusion. Stress cracks like this one over here can cause moisture intrusion. Stress cracks are usually a cause of concern, but more of a cause of can that water get through the foundation wall, causing the moisture intrusion into the home. On this area, the drainage needs to be addressed. It's all flat through here. You also have a low spot in this section. You also have a downspout extension that should extend at least 5 feet. We usually say 10 feet away from the house. Foliage, any grasses, any type of shrubs should be kept away from the house. When you have grasses and shrubs, you tend to want to water them. They also encapsulate the soil and keep the moisture within the soil, which can cause damage to your foundation and moisture intrusion. Mulch is also not recommended against a foundation. Mulch is used as a weed barrier along with keeping moisture within the soil. Metal edging or concrete landscape edging can also cause issues with moisture that is unable to get away from the foundation wall. It reduces the water flow. So you have this metal edging right through here. This seems to be far enough away, but we also have stone here that's encapsulating the soil, which would prevent the water from draining away from the house. So we're inside now, inside the home, and we're going to inspect the crawl space. Now the standards of practice say that we do not need to get into a crawl space. 18 inches of clearance from the entrance into a crawl space, so it is limited on what we can actually inspect. And there are things that are inside of a crawl space you have to be very careful about. So we're going to try and go into the crawl space and see what we can find. Typical things that we find is moisture in the crawl with it would be the soil. The soil is probably one of the areas, even if it has a vapor barrier, you want to make sure that if it feels gushy in any way, that you call that out to make sure that there's not going to be any issues with movement throughout the house or even moisture intrusion from the exterior into the home. So we're going to go ahead and take a look inside the crawl space. So we're in the crawl space, and the first thing we want to make sure that we noted is that the clearance is sufficient for us to get in. And also, is there any dangers within the crawl space? If there's a lot of mold, we want to make sure you're not getting in the crawl space either. The other thing, you got a crawl space with vapor barrier, and all that means is there's plastic over the ground. This should be at least up on the side walls, 6 inches, and sealed, along with any areas that are overlapping. That should be sealed. That keeps the moisture down with inside of a crawl space. So while in the crawl space, we want to make sure we take a look at the foundation wall. Effervescence, which is a white powdery residue that is given off by masonry. It's tell signs that there has been moisture coming through the wall. The other thing is to make sure that there's no moisture coming up from underneath the ground, which is inside the crawl space, along with moisture on top of the wall. The other area of concern would be window wells. Window wells actually help the egress from people getting out from inside the basement, but they're also another issue of water intrusion. Within a window well, you want to make sure there's drains installed. Older homes don't typically have drains, but they help with that water getting away from the foundation. You want to make sure they're deep enough. You want to make sure there's at least some sort of lip on a window well, and that there's no leaking coming in. In this case, this window has a pump within the window well, which is signs that there is previous issues with water intrusion into the home. As inspectors, we are unable to look behind the walls in a basement, along with some places within a crawl space. In this case, these walls are covered with drywall, which we cannot inspect behind. Tell signs that there is moisture that's coming through the crawl space or even a foundation wall would be at the base of the wall on your foundation, especially underneath a window well. If water is coming through that window well, then there is possibly moisture you can see on the floor. Checking these areas is very important. It can be moisture intrusion along with damaging of the foundation wall. Areas that you would like to inspect are the sump pump. Sump pump actually will have perimeter drains around the home. Typically, there's other methods. You should check the sump pump to make sure water's okay as long as there's only a couple inches in there, but you also want to verify that the pump is working. After a huge rainstorm, any snowstorm, you want to make sure that you check in on the sump pump to make sure the pump is working properly. In this case, there is about probably 4 to 5 inches of water within the pump. The pump should be ejecting that water out. Sometimes it's just the float. The float needs to be adjusted, or the pump might need to be replaced. Pumps last maybe about 10 years. To check your pump and to make sure it's functioning properly, you should put water down into the pump. Make sure it's not hot water. This will turn on the pump. If it does not turn on, more than likely it's either clogged or there's something else going on with the pump. We recommend about 5 gallons of water. That way it ejects the water away, and that you could determine on if it's really working or working intermittently. If you don't hear the pump turning on, there might be a blockage, or there could be a problem with the sump pump. The other thing you want to check out is the extension cord. It should be on a dedicated outlet without anything else being plugged in. The end of the plug might have a tube, and that tube is where you suck in on the tube and it helps reset the sump pump. And plug it back in, and then the pump should turn back on. If it does not turn back on, then there could also be a problem with the pump itself. In conclusion, we've actually looked at the exterior of the home, the crawl space, the sump pump, the downspouts along with the gutters, trees that can actually be a problem with the drainage around the home due to debris, the front and rear decks with erosion, the driveway, along with the grading around the home. My name is Tamara LaPlante with Prospective Property Inspections. Until next time, make sure you refer back to InterNACHI for all their information and videos. Thank you.